Hello to all my dear students. I hope you all are doing fine. So today we are going to start with the first lecture of the chapter Ecosystem. So far we have completed Organism and Population. I hope you all have revised that chapter well and have understood it also. So today we are going to start with the next chapter of Ecology, Ecosystem, where we will study the details about what is ecosystem, types of ecosystem, how ecosystem functions, everything, all simple and easy details of ecosystem will be done in this chapter. Starting with what is ecosystem. So basically the term ecosystem was coined by scientist Tansley. This ecosystem simply means the interaction between different biotic and abiotic component through nutrient cycling, through energy flow, through productivity, through decomposition. Simply the interaction between biotic and abiotic components of the earth forms your healthy ecosystem. It is one of the level of ecology. The term was coined by Tansley. So first we are going to write the definition part of ecosystem and then we will proceed with the types of ecosystem. So if I talk about the definition, chalo everyone, let's write it. How will you define this terminology ecosystem? It simply means the interaction between biotic and abiotic components. It is simply the interaction between biotic and abiotic component through. Now how are these components going to interact? Through energy flow, nutrient cycle, decomposition, etc. All these terminologies which I have written over here are the different functions which ecosystem has to perform to maintain its stability. The term ecosystem was coined by scientist Tansley. Correct? Now, types of ecosystem, basically there can be two types of ecosystem. First of all, depending upon the location, whether the ecosystem is on land or ecosystem is on water. So terrestrial ecosystem, like for example forest ecosystem, grassland ecosystem, etc. Aquatic ecosystem means ocean, pond, lake, river, all these ecosystem, all the biotic, abiotic components which are related to water forms. So on the basis of location. Now there can be two types of ecosystem. Number one is terrestrial and number two is aquatic ecosystem. Terrestrial beta means ecosystem of land. Like I told you already, forest ecosystem, grassland ecosystem, all these are terrestrial ecosystem. Aquatic means ecosystem which are found in water, like for example ocean ecosystem, river ecosystem, etc. Pond ecosystem. Okay, now next after this, okay, just a second. Yes, now after this beta, depending upon the human involvement in maintaining the ecosystem, again there can be two types of ecosystem. Man-made, also called as anthropogenic or natural ecosystem. So now let's add a page first. Now types of ecosystem depending upon the human involvement. Number one is natural ecosystem. And number two is anthropogenic, also called as man-made ecosystem. Natural ecosystem means what, beta? Natural ecosystem means ecosystem where human involvement is least. All the biotic and abiotic components, they are managing themselves without the help of any human input. Now, so what is natural ecosystem? Like for example, all these forest, pond, all these ecosystem are natural, where human involvement is least. But if I talk about anthropogenic or man-made ecosystem, the name itself suggests the ecosystems which are maintained by man, the ecosystems which are run by man and human resources. For example, aquarium, agriculture, all these ecosystems are made by man, they are maintained by man also. So ecosystem which are maintained by human resources. For example, like agriculture is your crop field, aquarium, etc. All these are beta man-made ecosystem where complete look after is done by man, no nature is involved. Natural means nature ecosystem. So these are the two types of ecosystem which you have to remember. Now proceeding with the structural aspect of your ecosystem. Ecosystem structurally beta can be divided into two categories as species composition, also called as species richness, and second is species stratification. So structurally the ecosystem beta can be divided into two components. Number one is species richness and second is stratification. Now if I talk about species richness, then what is the species richness? Species richness means the number of organism, the number of different type, the variety of different organisms occupying a specific area. More the species richness, better and stable is the ecosystem. Now, on the other hand, what is stratification? Stratification means vertical distribution of every species occupying different levels in the ecosystem. So first let's write the definition of species richness. This simply means number of different species found on Earth. So this ecosystem simply is made up of, ecosystem depends upon biotic component. Biotic component includes living organisms. Different living organisms capable of interbreeding form species. So this is species richness. More the species richness, better will be your, healthier will be your, stable will be your ecosystem. Now, every species has its own contribution in the nature. Depending upon the contribution, every species occupy a specific position in the ecosystem, which is called as stratification. So how will you define stratification? It is simply the vertical distribution of different species occupying different levels, right? So this is vertical distribution of different species occupying different levels. Like for example, if I talk about forest ecosystem. So in forest ecosystem, if I talk about the biotic component, they mainly includes trees, herbs and shrubs. So herbs will occupy the lowermost trophic level, or say lowermost level of the stratification. then will be shrubs, and topmost will be trees. So this is called as stratification. Depending upon the size over here, we have done the distribution of different species found in forest ecosystem. Herbs being the smallest one, then shrubs, and then comes your trees. Understood? So beta, this much you have to do for ecosystem structure. Now, talking about the functional aspect of ecosystem. So functionally, ecosystem, to run an ecosystem, to make your ecosystem more stable, beta, there are 4 different functions which ecosystem should perform for maintaining stability. The 4 different important functions of ecosystem are: number 1, productivity. That means amount of biomass generated, that completely depends upon autotrophs. जितने ज़्यादा पेड़ पौधे होंगे, more the greenery, more the rate of photosynthesis, more will be the biomass production, healthier will be your ecosystem. Second, energy flow. It's not only that autotrophs are synthesizing food and keeping it with themselves. No, it should be soon transferred from producer to consumer, and from one consumer to another consumer. There should be continuous unidirectional flow of energy. Third, nutrient cycling. Fourth, decomposition. To keep the environment clean, it is very, very important that whatever dead organic waste is there, it should with time keep on getting decomposed for proper nutrient cycling. So these are the 4 important functions of ecosystem which ecosystem should perform in a very uniform manner so that stability is maintained. So now we are going to talk about the functions of ecosystem. So basically there are 4 important functions of ecosystem, listing as productivity, energy flow, decomposition, and nutrient cycling. So these are the 4 important functions which are responsible for maintaining a stable ecosystem. One by one, we will discuss all these functions of ecosystem and how are they contributing for maintaining a healthier ecosystem. We will see with every topic. First, we are going to talk about productivity. What is productivity? Productivity beta simply means the total amount of biomass generated by autotrophs with the help of light energy over a given period of time in a given period of area, occupying a different area, specific area over a given period of time is known as production. Clear? Now, sun is the ultimate source of energy. We all know that. Now just see, the first point which we are going to write is over here. Sun is the ultimate source of energy, right? Which is consumed by all autotrophs. Autotrophs are the basically, these are the producers which are simply your green plants. The plants which can trap light and can convert it into chemical form are the autotrophs, also called as producers. Now, when they will do so, when they will trap the light and when they will convert it into chemical form, that chemical form is the biomass, which is equivalent to productivity. So what is productivity? Productivity is the amount of, let's write the definition, amount of biomass produced by producers, that means autotrophs, in a given specific area over a period of time. Over a given period of time, right? This is basically primary production. Primary means the first organism to produce biomass. So primary, we are always talking with respect to producers. We are always talking with respect to plants, right? So this is the amount of biomass produced by autotrophs in a given specific area over a given period of time. So this is known as primary production. Now the unit of primary production, there can be two units in terms of area or in terms of energy, or in terms of weight, not basically area, sorry. In terms of weight, it is gram per meter square. In terms of energy, it is kilocalories per meter square. Clear? This is primary production. Now suppose if you have to define primary productivity, then just mention over here you have written amount of biomass produced by autotroph in a given area over a given period of time. So now if you mention the time, maybe per year with respect to year, then that becomes when you mention the specific duration of time, then production becomes productivity. Right? So if you want to write the definition of primary productivity, how will it be different? Zyada difference nahi hoga. Simply you are going to specify the range of the time also. Primary productivity simply means rate of biomass generated by autotrophs. It's the rate of biomass generated by autotrophs in a given area in a given time. Right? Hence, the unit will become gram per meter square. Now, time also you have to mention per year. In terms of energy, now unit. Simply, the difference between primary productivity and primary production is in production you don't specify the time, but in primary productivity beta you also specify the specific duration which is with respect to per year. Right? So this is the total primary productivity. Now, the amount of, okay, one more thing I would like to add over here. This primary productivity is more in terrestrial ecosystem. Annual primary productivity, which is calculated, is nearly 170 billion tons. Isn't it lot? But इसमें से 115 billion is contributed by terrestrial ecosystem, whereas 55 billion tons is contributed by ocean ecosystem. Why? We say कि oceans जो हैं बेटा वो land का 3/4 area occupy कर रहे हैं, and land is only earth का, and land is only occupying 1/4 area. So when water is so much on the earth, then why the production is less? The only reason is that in ocean ecosystem, availability of light and availability of nutrient is lesser, very much less as compared to terrestrial ecosystem. So when I talk in terms of terrestrial ecosystem or aquatic ecosystem, so you see that in aquatic ecosystem, the production is less even if they cover more area. There are only two reasons associated with it is availability of light and availability of nutrients in water is less. Correct? And you know, production of biomass depends upon light and nutrient. Now, if both the things are less in ocean, then automatically the amount of biomass generated will also decline, as you can see it over here. Understood, everyone? Yes or no? Chalo. Well done. Now, let's add a page. Okay, now this primary productivity can be divided into two subparts as gross primary productivity and net primary productivity. Gross means total, which is the total amount of biomass generated in a plant. But is that total amount of plant completely available for the consumer to feed on? No. Kuch to energy, some part of the biomass will be utilized by the producer also na, for its metabolic activity. Suppose today I ate 2 rotis, I ate 2 chapatis. So all those 2 chapatis, the entire biomass will go out as undigested food tomorrow in the morning as fecal matter? No. A part of the 2 rotis or 2 chapatis will be utilized by my body to generate energy. The leftover portion which could not be digested, which could not be assimilated in my body, that will be removed as fecal matter. Now later, if bacteria and fungi and other flagellates, they come and feed on that fecal matter, then the remaining amount of energy which is there in the fecal matter, they will decompose and they will feed on it. So that remaining amount of energy is known as net primary productivity, and total amount of energy produced is known as gross primary productivity. Clear? Okay, very good. So, beta, this primary productivity can be studied in how many parameters? 2 parameters, that is gross primary productivity, GROSS, and net primary productivity. What is gross? The total amount of energy produced. It is simply the total amount of energy produced in the producer. Energy means biomass. The total amount of biomass produced by the producer is known as gross. However, total gross is not available for the consumer. Obviously, it is not available for the consumer, as some amount will be utilized. Some amount will be utilized for its own metabolic activity, which is called as respiration. That means GPP minus respiration will be NPP, net primary productivity. Now this net primary productivity is available amount of biomass for the organism, that is consumer. Correct? So if plant prepare X amount of energy and utilizes Y amount of energy, so X minus Y, whatever is the remaining, is the available energy which you are going to get if you feed on that plant. Now if I am getting suppose Z amount of energy, now Z amount of energy, some my body will utilize, maybe A amount, so Z minus A. Now whatever is left in my body, any other organism coming and feeding on me will take that energy. So this is called as flow of energy taking place. So this is net primary productivity. Understood, everyone? So this much you have to do for production in productivity. This is the very first function of ecosystem, which entirely depends upon the concept of prey predation. When organism is preparing the food, the first organism to prepare the food are the producers. Once they prepare the food, some amount they utilize, the remaining amount is transferred to the organism who is predating on that. Now the organism who predated now in later case will become the prey for another organism. So like this, the flow of energy will keep on taking place, and yes, the amount of biomass generated will keep on be transferred from one organism to another. Ultimately, every organism has to die. Now the dead remains of both plants and animals, in fact, when leaves fall off, the branches falls off, they come on the soil. When any animal or any human dies, then their dead remains also come in the soil. Now if they remain as it is, if they do not get further decomposed, then imagine there will be lot of dead organic matter around you, making your environment highly unhealthy for living. So that is why this is the second important aspect of ecosystem function, called as decomposition. Decomposition is simply required for returning the nutrients back in the soil. See, plant used light energy to prepare food, but along with light energy, they also required the nutrients which they took from the soil. Now, we need to replenish the soil with nutrients also. If it has to be done naturally, then what is the method? How the nutrients taken up by the plant will go back to the soil? They will be returned after decomposition of the dead organic matter. So this decomposition is very, very necessary for two reasons. First, it cleans the environment by degrading all the dead remains, and second, it replenishes the soil with nutrients. And this is the very important second function of ecosystem. Clear? So what is decomposition? Decomposition simply means degradation of dead organic matter with the help of bacteria, fungi, flagellates, etc. Correct? There are two good reasons associated with decomposition. Number one, decomposition beta cleans the environment by removing the dead component, right? And second, replenishes the soil. It replenishes the soil with the nutrients. Imagine if plants are simply taking in the nutrients from the soil, then from where the soil will get, how the soil will act as a reservoir. भाई लेते जाओगे वापस नहीं करोगे nutrients, how the thing will survive. So for that survival, replenishing the soil with nutrient is very, very important aspect. Correct? Yes or no? Now, one note point is there, one definition I'm writing. Dead remains of both plant and animal is known as detritus. So, decomposition of the detritus has to take place. So, dead remains of plants and animal is known as detritus. So basically decomposition of this detritus has to take place, which includes all things, the branches, the litter which falls from the tree, including the branches, leaves, etc., as well as the dead remains of animal also. Everything is detritus which has to be decomposed. This detritus is simply organic matter which has to be completely decomposed and has to be released in the form of inorganic elements. And this is done by the process decomposition. Correct? Okay. Now, this decomposition beta, it can be done in 5 steps. So this decomposition we can divide in 5 steps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. First is fragmentation. Second is leaching. Third is catabolism. Fourth is humification. And fifth is mineralization. So beta, these are the 5 steps of decomposition. This fragmentation is the first and the initial step of decomposition, done with the help of farmer's friend like earthworm, termites. You must have heard that these earthworms are farmer's friend. Why are they called as farmer's friend? What are they doing? They start the process of decomposition beta. They are going to begin the process of decomposition by feeding on the dead remains. They feed on detritus. That is why earthworm is also known as detritivore. They simply feed on the dead organic matter, decompose it, and convert the complex organic into simple organic form, so that further bacteria and all can further break down that simple organic into simple inorganic. So what is fragmentation? This is the first step. First point. Second point, carried by detritivores. Carried by detritivores, like for example earthworm. क्या करते हैं बेटा ये earthworm? They feed on the detritus, they intake the detritus, and they break down the complex organic substance into simpler organic substance, which is released in the form of their feces. So जो भी dead remains था, earthworm उसको खा जाएगा. Once it takes in, internal digestion takes place. Digestion, जो भी nutrients होगा, it will consume. Whatever undigested portion is there in the form of fecal matter, it will come out in the form of simple organic substance. Now, in this simple organic, this is the first step, fragmentation. Fragmentation simply means that the complex substance is broken down into simpler fragments. This is fragmentation. Now, from this simpler organic substance beta, there must be some soluble component and there must be some insoluble component. So, the soluble component, along with the water in the soil, they will dissolve in the soil, they will dissolve in the water, and they will percolate deeper in the soil and will become unavailable for the decomposer to decompose. Further decomposition soluble component ka nahi hoga. So second step is thus known as leaching. First step is fragmentation. Second step is leaching. What is being done in leaching? No decomposition, simply soluble simple organic substance. Soluble simple organic substance dissolve in the water of the soil and becomes unavailable. for further decomposition and becomes unavailable for further. अब इसके आगे इसका decomposition नहीं होगा. This is leaching. After leaching beta comes the next step, catabolism. This catabolism is done by decomposer, actual decomposer, that is bacteria and fungi. Now whatever simple organic substance is left in the soil, these bacteria, they feed on that. These bacteria, they release the digestive enzymes and they start decomposing that simple organic into simple inorganic. So bacteria, fungi performs external fertilization. They release the digestive juices. They further convert. So these two are just now going to perform the external fertilization, that is, they will release digestive juices to further break down the fecal matter of detritivore, which consists of simple organic compounds, to further degrade the feces, the fecal matter of detritivores, which is basically what? Which is basically simple organic substance. Correct? Now, there are two levels of decomposition, which is your humification, that is formation of humus, and further formation of mineral. Partial decomposition forms humus, complete decomposition forms mineral. Now, these two steps we will discuss in our next class, that what are the factors affecting decomposition and the last two steps. The first three steps, I hope, is clear to each and every one of you, that how this decomposition takes place. It is divided into 5 steps. What is decomposition? How this process begins. The end portion we will discuss in our next class. So stay tuned till then. Keep revising from your NCERT. Keep following my words, as well as always make notes. Notes are always going to help you beta in every scenario, and reading NCERT is absolutely necessary. Hope you all enjoyed this simple short lecture. Thank you for joining me. See you in the next lecture. Bye bye everyone. Take care.